Hey blues fans, welcome. It's time for another episode of This Week in the Blues. It's our weekly take on blues history. I'm your host, Jimbo Big Train Madsen, with the blues band Big Train and the Locomotives. So let's take a look and see what happened this week in blues history. R&B guitar legend Steve Cropper was born October 21st in 1941, sometimes known as the Colonel. He was the guitarist of the Stax record house band Booker T and the MGs, which backed such artists like Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, Carla Thomas, Rufus Thomas, and Johnny Taylor. He also acted as a producer of many of these records. He was later a member of the Blues Brothers Band. Rolling Stone magazine ranked him 39th on its list of the 100 greatest guitarists of all time. Dr. Ross the Harmonica Boss was born October 21st, 1925 in Tunica, Mississippi. Ross's blues style has been compared to that of John Lee Hooker and Sonny Boy Williamson, the first one, not the second one. His recordings for Sun Records in the 1950s include The Boogie Disease and Chicago Breakdown. Within the lyrics of The Boogie Disease, Ross notably sang, "I may be getting better, but I'll never get well." In the early 1950s, Ross's records began to get airplay in Mississippi and Arkansas. Blues guitarist Elvin Bishop was born October 21st in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is the home state of Big Train and the Locomotives. He first came to prominence alongside fellow Blues Hall of Fame guitarist Michael Bloomfield as a member of the influential Paul Butterfield Blues Band in the 1960s, and has since carved his own niche as both a hit-making roadhouse rocker and as a multiple Blues Music Award recipient. He grew up on an Iowa farm and in Tulsa, and his persona and music reflect his rural roots, his wit, and his humor, and an appreciation of a wide range of sounds, including blues, rock, soul, gospel, and country. Chicago blues guitarist L.C. McKinley was born October 22nd, 1918. He worked with Eddie Boyd and Ernest Cotton, and his major output was as a session musician on the recordings made mostly in the 1950s. He also released a number of singles on various record labels. His best-known tracks include Weeping Willow Blues and Nitwit. His guitar playing was influenced by T-Bone Walker. Blues and boogie-woogie piano player and singer Speckled Red was born October 23rd in 1892. Born Rufus George Perryman, he is best noted for his recordings of The Dirty Dozens, an exchange of insults and vulgar remarks. Playing at the dozens, or putting in the dozens, is a music game in which two or more of the players hurl insults and boasts at one another and are invariably obscene, frequently pornographic, and always aim to disparage an opponent's genealogy. It's kind of like the original version of your mama jokes. So there you go. That's putting in the dozens. Acoustic blues harmonica player Sonny Terry was born October 24th in 1911. He was noted for his exuberant whoops and hollers that he worked into his blues numbers. Born in Greensboro, North Carolina, the blind harp virtuoso first recorded with Piedmont blues star Blind Boy Fuller in 1937, and did much of his best work with longtime partner Brownie McGhee, who he met in 1939. He took his blues into such varied settings as Carnegie Hall, a Broadway theater, commercial television, and even classical music. Chicago blues guitarist Jimmy Dawkins was born October 24th in 1936. He was more of the West Side sound of the Chicago blues, which is generally considered to be smoother and somewhat less hard edge than the South Side of Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. Jimmy Dawkins was an unusual kind of bluesman. As a guitarist, he was intense without being dramatic. As a singer, he was expressive without shouting. And as a performer, he was, by choice, not much of a showman. R&B singer, songwriter, and pianist Willie Mabin was born October 24th in 1925. He moved from Memphis, Tennessee to Chicago in about 1942. There he formed the group The Blues Rockers, and in 1949 began recording for Aristocat Records and then Chess Records. His biggest success came in 1952 when his debut solo release, I Don't Know, topped the Billboard R&B chart for 8 weeks. It was played on Alan Freed's early radio shows and also sold well to white audiences, crossing over markets at the start of the rock and roll era. Mississippi native Tommy Bankhead was born October 24th in 1931. The Delta Blues guitarist and singer played with Howlin' Wolf, Sonny Boy Williamson, the first one, Elmore James, who actually was his cousin, Joe Willie Wilkins, Robert Nighthawk, and Joe Hill Lewis. In addition to all of this, he also released a few albums under his own name. He sometimes played the bass and the harmonica. One of the inventors of rock and roll, Wrecking Crew drummer Earl Palmer, was born October 25th in 1924. Palmer was one of the most prolific studio musicians of all time and played on thousands of recordings, including nearly all of Little Richard's hits, all of Fat Domino's hits, You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin' by the Righteous Brothers, and a long list of classic TV and film soundtracks. According to one obituary, his list of credits read like a who's who of American pop music of the last 60 years. Chicago blues piano player Detroit Jr. Williams was born October 26, 1931. Born in Hayes, Arkansas, as a child, Williams moved around quite a bit as his family relocated from Arkansas to Memphis, then to Pulaski, Illinois, and finally on to Flint, Michigan, where Williams lived with his grandmother. He started his recording career in 1960, and over the next decade, recorded and released several singles and an LP. It was here that he earned the name Detroit Jr. Well, blues fans, we just covered some of the highlights here. Now, if you want to know more about any of these artists or all the other things that happened this week in the blues, be sure to follow our social media pages or visit our website at bigtrainblues.com. We'll have a new episode next week, so we'll see you then.